Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a look at the accuracy of the Ruger SFAR. In the time that I've had this rifle, I have put a lot of rounds down range, and I will be doing a full video on it in the future. In that time, I've tested well over a dozen different loads through this rifle when it comes to accuracy and shooting groups, and today I'm going to bring you the results of that testing. And for those of you that aren't familiar, what the SFAR is a rifle made by Ruger. It's obviously in the AR platform, but it is going to be chambered in 308. For a 308 AR-10, which this isn't a real AR-10, but I digress, this thing is really lightweight for what it is. I'll go into that a little bit more when I do the full video, but for all practical purposes, this is just a lightweight 308 in the AR platform. So this is by no means a precision rifle, but in my opinion, it is bridging the gap between a full-on precision rifle, maybe a bolt gun, and then just your normal lightweight like 5.56 type setup. So I consider this to be a DMR. It's given me increased power, it's given me some increased accuracy, but at the same time, it's in a small enough platform that it's still really easy to maneuver around, and it can still be ran really fast up close. I've shot this gun out to a decent amount of distance. I've achieved some pretty good accuracy out of it, but I've also ran sub-second bill drills, and a gun that can kind of do all of that and still be in a somewhat handy package and be delivering 308 power, that's kind of what a DMR is to me. Now, all the accuracy testing that I did using 5-shot groups. Now, you can argue whether you should do 3 or 5 or 10 or 20 or whatever. I did a few groups that were actually 10 rounds and even a few that were an entire magazine, but I felt like 5-shot gave the best representation of what the rifle was capable of. Also, in a minute, I'm going to give you the average of all my groups. So every single group that I shot the entire time I've had this rifle, what was my end-all average? So we're going to take a look at that. And also be aware, for every group that we have here, I probably shot at least 3 or more of that same ammo off camera, 3 more groups. So this is by no means every group I shot. Got some more targets here off to the side I'm going to show you in a minute. These were just some that I saved. I made some notes and I kept up with it just to kind of show you a good basic idea of what this rifle is capable of. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get into looking at some groups, because that's what you're here for. This one here was with the Barnes 168 grain TTSX. I absolutely love Barnes bullets. 300 blackout to 300 mag. If you want something that is just devastating when it comes to anything of a fleshy substance, those Barnes TTSX, that's the go-to. But this was a 175 group. If you counted the just 4 rounds, it would have been a 125. That's the way we're going to look at all of these. I'm going to tell you all 5, and then I'm going to tell you if it was just 4. So 175 with 125 on 4 rounds. Next, we have the Hornady 168 grain match. So this is a boat tail hollow point load. I actually fired 6 rounds on this one. That was kind of a mess up on my part. On the 5th round, I pulled it extremely bad. Like, I anticipated the recoil, and I disregarded that shot because it was 100% on me. If you count just the 5, which is the way you should, because that 6th one was garbage on my part, it's a 125 group. If you count the 4, it is a 1-inch group exactly. I've also got a note here to the side that I've shot several other groups with this that fell into the 1.5-inch category. So 1 1/4 to 1.5 5-shot groups is what I'm getting out of the Hornady 168 match grade. Next is another group with the Barnes. So we got a 5-shot group. It is 175, just like the other Barnes group, and 4 shots, it was 1 inch. So that has been very consistent. I've shot half a dozen or more groups using that Barnes ammo because I do really like it. And this is what it has been consistently. 1.5 inches to 1 3/4 with 5 shots. On 4-shot groups, it's been, you know, around 1 inch to 1 1/4. I think I actually shot one that was sub MOA, but I digress. Next, we have the Federal 168 grain gold medal match. So this is a Sierra Match King boat tail bullet. 5 shots, we've got it in 1 3/4, and 4 shots it was in 1 1/4. So not too bad, real similar to the Hornady, not quite as good. Next we've got the Winchester Razor Bore XP. Not a round I really like, I just had some of it so I was using it. 150 grain hollow point. It did not like that stuff at all, so we have a 3.5 inch group with 4 shots being in 3 inches. So pretty terrible group to be honest. And a couple of these really bad groups are just going to kill our average at the end. So just take that information for what you will. Next we have the Hornady 165 grain soft point. So this was just like the American whitetail, just some real traditional hunting ammo. 3 1/4. It didn't like that load. 4 shots falling under 2 inches, so not terrible. Probably adequate for hunting, but not one of my favorites. Next we have a 7.62 load. So all of these have been 308. So this is a Aguila 150 grain full metal jacket 7.62. And it was a 3 1/4 inches, and I did not measure the best 4, or the 4 I should say, but I would say it's not much better than that. So about 3 1/4 inches for 5 shots. Next we have another Aguila load. So this is the Aguila 308, whereas this was 7.62. 150 grain full metal jacket boat tail. I picked up some of this stuff locally, and it actually seems to like it at least pretty good for range ammo. We got a 1 3/4 inch group and 4 shots falling at 1 inch. Next we have another 7.62 load. So this is 7.62 by 51 American Eagle. Pretty much just a M80 load. It's 147 grains. This one we had a 1.5 inch group and then 4 shots falling in 3/4 of an inch. So that was a sub MOA out of just M80 ball on that particular group. I actually shot a whole box of this, if I remember correctly. So I shot 4 individual 5-shot groups, and they all were consistent with these results. Next we have the Federal Fusion. So another just kind of traditional hunting load. I actually only had 4 rounds of this. I don't even know where I got it. So we only did a 4-round group, but they went into a 1 1/4. And if we only did 3 shots, we didn't have the full 5. They went into 3/4 of an inch. So I didn't have any more of that ammo to test, but that definitely seems to be promising, especially for just a traditional hunting round. Next we have the Freedom Munitions. This is another M80 load, so 7.62, and it's 147 grain. Considering that is some really cheap, just remanufactured ammo, not too bad. We had a 2 inch group overall and 4 rounds landing in a 1 3/8. So definitely not bad, especially considering how cheap that ammo is. All right, next we have another group with the Barnes. I actually referenced this group earlier. I didn't realize I had saved it. But this is a 1 1/4 group, and then we had 4 rounds landing in .75. So sub MOA with 4 rounds and just over MOA with all 5. So that's decent out of that Barnes, especially for such good ammo as far as what it does downrange. Next, this is actually steel case. So this is Wolf steel cased, 145 grain full metal jacket. We have a 2 inch group overall with 4 rounds landing into 1 1/4. You can also see I wrote a note here, fired 4 groups, all under 2 inches. Next, we have another group with the Federal Gold Medal Match. So this is 168 grain boat tail hollow point. It's a Sierra Match King bullet. We've got 1 3/8 for all 5 rounds and 4 rounds landing into 1 inch. So definitely a good group, pretty consistent on what we saw from earlier. And I did shoot up several boxes of this stuff doing accuracy tests, and it's the same every time, to be honest, as long as I do my part. And then the last group we have here is the Hornady Match. I think that's one of the groups we started with, but it is a 168 grain boat tail hollow point. We've got all 5 landing in a 1.5 inch exactly, and then we have 1 1/8 for 4 rounds. So if you look at all the groups that I have here and the ones that I shot off camera that I documented but I did not save the targets, the grand total average, if you add up every single group I shot, means this rifle is a 1 7/8 rifle. So even the worst groups that we have here that were over 3 inches, averaging that all together, we come up with 1 7/8 for 5-shot groups on all the groups that I've shot. So going into this, I really wanted this rifle to be sub 2 inches, to kind of fall into what I consider to be a DMR. You know, I want it to be under 2 inches, 1.5 inches or less would be ideal. Sorry, got high production value around here. And it definitely achieved that. So it's under a 2-inch gun as far as on average. If you looked at the 4-shot groups that we mentioned as we went, the average drops down pretty significantly. On 4-shot groups, it is a 1.5-inch gun exactly. So averaging all those groups, once again, looking at just 4 shots, it comes up to 1.5 inches. Now, if you wanted to lower that to 3-shot groups, I went ahead and did the math on that once again, looking at all the groups you see here, plus all the others that I have, and it lowers the overall average to a 0.90. So 3-shot groups only looking at your first 3 rounds, it's a sub MOA gun. Now, your context to how many rounds you want to measure your groups off of, I'll leave that to you to debate in the comments. I'm a 5-shot guy. I like looking at 5-shot groups when it comes to a rifle like this. But I will be the first to admit, if I'm looking at it for a hunting context, 3 shots all the way. I think 3-shot groups really can tell me what a gun is capable of when it comes to hunting. Also, I need to mention this right now. All of these groups were shot on a completely cold gun, and they were also shot with no fouling shot. So I did not foul in the group for each barrel. I just went from to the next, to the next, to the next, and I did shoot this across the course of several days, not all at once. I have a bore fan that will help me cool down the barrel and the suppressor on this rifle as I'm getting it hot. It's actually kind of a DIY thing that I built. If you're interested in that, I will link it in the description. So what I would do is I would simply shoot a group, I would set the fan up, I would let it cool, I would check the targets, I would measure everything out. By the time I finished that, the gun would be cooled down again, and I would go on to the next ammo and the next group. All in all, I am really happy with the results of this test, and I have been very pleased with this rifle. You can tell I have made quite a few changes to this thing. It is no longer in its stock form, and I knew I was doing that going into it. I kind of had a plan front to back, high production value once again. I had a plan front to back of what I planned on doing with this rifle before I even purchased it, and I'm pleased to say that it has really worked out. I'll save a lot of that for the full video because I am still testing this rifle and putting rounds through it. With all that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found the information helpful. If you would like to contact me directly, there's several ways you can do that. My email is down in the description. You can also message me on Instagram and Facebook, and if you're not following me in those places, I would appreciate that as well. As always, thanks for watching. See y'all next time.